In this video, I'll be demonstrating how to successfully complete on your own assignment 13-2. So as usual, I'm going to click the here link to get the correct set of instructions on your own 13-2 and drag these to another screen here so I can see them while I'm working. You can keep them up on a different screen or print them out while you're working if that makes it easier. And in this on your own assignment, we'll be working with Excel. So I've already opened Excel, and we're going to start by creating a blank workbook. And step 1 wants us to create the new blank workbook and then save it. And of course it's going to give you a naming convention, which you can ignore because we have our own naming convention, of course, that we are using. And that would be your last name underscore first initial underscore OYO, and in this case it's 13-2. And I don't have to worry about adding the file extension because Excel will automatically do that whenever it saves. Okay, so notice we start with only one sheet here, and step 2 wants us to insert a new sheet and then rename it to service calls. So we'll just click the little plus here. That creates a new sheet, and notice it automatically names it sheet 2. To rename that, all we have to do is double click on the name of the sheet and it lets us type. So we'll just name that service calls and hit enter as directed. And on this worksheet, step 3 wants us to enter labels for several different columns, and I'm actually going to come down and start somewhere about here. I don't like to start in A1 only because I might need to put things above it or to the left of it, and even if I change my mind later I can always delete those extra rows and columns. So I like to come down somewhere about here and start. That's just a preference. You don't absolutely have to do that. But the names of the columns are given in the instruction set: client, address, phone, date of service, hours, travel fee, hourly rate, and service charge. Now I'm just hitting tab. I'll type one and then hit tab and it automatically moves to the cell to the right. That's how I'm doing it so quickly. So you can do that, or you can click into the next one and type it, however you want to do it. It's a little bit simpler, I think, to hit tab if you're typing. That way you don't have to take your hands off of the keyboard and use the mouse. Alright, on to step 4. It says enter fictional data for at least 5 clients. So I'm just going to make up some clients here. Sample data. Alright, and now for the address, and I guess it's the same here, so I'm just going to copy and paste that down. And here we can make up some phone numbers. You can make up some different phone numbers if you like. I'm just going to use the same one because it really doesn't matter here. And the date of service, just going to kind of make up some dates here. Alright, and hours. So I'll just make up some hours here. You can make up whatever you like. And the travel fee, here again, you can just make up these numbers. It doesn't tell you exactly what you need to make them, so you can just kind of make up whatever you like. Same thing for the hourly rate. That can be the same. If you want to change it, that's perfectly fine. Okay. And then the service charge is going to be computed. We're going to use a formula to compute this one. So we should not key in data directly into the service charge column here. We're going to use a formula to do that. This is step 6. So it says, step 5. For each client, enter a formula to calculate the service charge, which is the number of hours multiplied by the hourly rate plus the travel fee. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the hourly rate times the number of hours plus the travel fee. Okay, so in the service charge, I'm going to start here on the very first record. We're going to say equals, because all formulas start with the equal sign. That's how you're telling Excel that it's going to calculate something, as opposed to just having static data in the cell. So all formulas begin with an equal sign. And so now you can type in the cell references, but I'm going to point to them with my mouse so that you can see that. So we're going to take hours here, which in this case is G6. Yours might be in a slightly different place depending upon where you put the data. And I'm going to hit the asterisk on my number pad. That's the sign for multiplication. And then click on hourly rate. So see, that's going to take hours times the hourly rate. And then I can hit plus on my number pad and then click on travel fee. So our formula is equal G6 times I6 plus H6. Now, we don't have to use parentheses here because in this particular case, the order of operations is going to do the multiplication first, but sometimes, depending upon your math, you're going to have to use parentheses so that you can force certain operations to occur first within your formula. It just depends on what you're doing. In this particular case, because the multiplication is going to occur first, that's actually what we want, so there's no need for parentheses. You can add them if you like. You can add a set of parentheses around the G6 times I6 part of it if you like. It's just not necessary in this particular case, okay? But hopefully you can see there how you can control the order of operations by using parentheses. It's the same sort of thing that you learned in algebra when you were in high school. Okay, it works the same way. You can remember that with the mnemonic, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, if you've never heard that. It's the parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's the order in which it resolves the math, and Excel follows that exact same order of operations, okay? So when I'm finished entering the formula here, I just hit enter, and so it's going to calculate. So we'll just, we'll look at this to make sure it's right. 5 times 100 is 500. Plus 50 is 550, so that is correct. Now what we want to do is we want to duplicate that for the rest of these records here, but there's no need to go in and type this formula again. In fact, you could see where that would not be a big deal for 5 records, but what if we had 5,000 records here? That would take forever, right? So you may be thinking there's got to be an easier way to do that, and you're absolutely right. The easy way to do that would be to use the fill handle here, and that is the little square, if you can see that. Let me maybe make it bigger. You can see the little square on the lower right hand corner. Once I have it selected, see any cell that I select, it's going to have this little square on the lower right hand corner. If you put your mouse pointer over that, notice how the pointer icon changes to a black cross. Well, if I then click and hold my left mouse button and drag that down, I can release it, and it automatically fills in the others, okay? Now I'm going to hit undo because I'm going to show you a slightly different way to do that. Excel is smart enough to know where the data stops, so another way to do it is simply to double click on that. So I'm going to double click instead of clicking and dragging, and it does the same thing. Okay, now if you have breaks in your data, that won't work. You may have to use the click and drag method, but if your data is all contiguous, that is, there's no breaks in it, Excel is smart enough to know where to stop. See, it didn't continue the formula down this way, right? All right, now let's examine one of these other ones that we copied. See, here it has changed the cell references to G7, I7, and H7, which is exactly what we want, right? And so if we go down to the next one, it's changed it to G8, I8, and H8. So Excel is smart enough to know to change the cell references. Okay, those are called relative cell referencing, and that's really the heart and soul of Excel. It's very, very important that you understand relative cell referencing because that is mostly what you will use. There's also absolute cell referencing, which I'll explain in another video. That kind of is beyond the scope of what we're doing in this particular one, but that is also very important that you understand the difference between relative and absolute cell referencing. Okay, so step 6 says enter a formula to total the service charge for all clients. So what we want to do is put a total down here. We can enter a formula to do that by doing this, equal sum, and in the parentheses we'll simply click and drag the range of cells that we want it to add, close our parentheses and hit enter, and then that's going to do that. But let me show you a slightly different way to do that. You can use the auto sum button here. Just position the cell selector where you want it and hit auto sum and see what it does. It automatically adds that exact formula and it defaults to sum. So we just hit that one more time and it accepts that. But notice there's a little down arrow here with auto sum because it allows us to use other functions. So if we wanted to average numbers or count them or calculate the minimum or maximum, we could do that as opposed to doing sum, but sum is probably the most common. That's why it defaults to that, okay? So that's a real quick trick to do that. And then step 6 also says add an appropriate label, so we'll just add the word total here. Maybe right justify that so it's obvious what we're doing. Step 7 says above the client data, insert rows as needed. And I don't have to insert the rows because I've got some up here. But if you need to do that, all you have to do is right click on the row number and say insert, and it will put additional rows up above that for you. You can actually do multiple. So if you want to do like 3 rows, highlight 3 rows and then say insert, and it'll insert 3 more rows for you, okay? It works the same way for columns. You can say insert and it'll insert 3 columns for you, okay? And if you want to delete them, you can highlight them and just say delete. Right click, delete. Okay, so you can control your cells like that, your columns and rows. So above the client data, insert rows as needed, and then enter a company name. All right, say, and purpose, billing, calculations. Okay, and then it says step 8, format the worksheet to make the content easy to read and understand. Change the column widths, number formats, text as necessary. Let me show you a quick way to do this. You can highlight your table and then say format as a table and choose one of the designs here. It's going to make sure you click my table has headers. That's what it means by the client address and phone column headers up there. And then it's going to automatically make it look really nice for you, okay? Another thing that you can do is highlight the columns including the data and double click one of the column dividers, and it will automatically resize the columns as necessary to accommodate the widest entry in there so that you don't have to do it one at a time. That's the easiest way to do it. And let's also look at these travel fee, hourly rate, and service charges are all currencies, so we can just click the little $ here after we highlight them, and that's going to change them, okay, to be currencies, which makes more sense for the data that we're dealing with. So step 9 says format the worksheet for printing. Change the page orientation as needed to fit the contents to one page. Okay, so the easy way to do that, we're just going to go to File and Print. Okay, and notice it's set to portrait orientation. We're just going to change that to landscape orientation. That's very common for spreadsheets. And down here at the bottom where it says no scaling, we're just going to choose fit sheet on one page. Okay, so now notice we can fit everything on a single page. You could print it if you'd like, but it's not necessary, obviously, to turn it in. And step 10 says rename sheet 1, which is here, to documentation. So again, we're just going to double click on that name, type in whatever we want, and hit enter. And then enter information documenting the workbook. Okay, include the name of the company, create a fictional name, your name, the current date. I'm going to show you a little trick here. You can say today, open close parens, and it'll put in whatever the current date is from the system. You can type it in if you like. That doesn't have to be a formula. And a brief description. Billing calculations. There we go. And step 11 is just preview and print. You don't have to actually print it, obviously, because you can't turn that in. And then save the workbook and close it. We're going to save, and that completes this on your own assignment.